Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another powerful episode of Think, Dream, and Do. My name is James McDonald, and I will be your host for today's live session, How to Deal with a Mean Family. This is a very special episode today. This is episode number 25, and it is a powerful one. But before I get into it, I'd like to ask how your week is going. Did you have a nice week? How's your life? And even more importantly, how are you? Now, I invite everyone listening to today's live podcast to chime in at any time. Really, just ask me anything. Please don't be shy. Whatever's on your mind, I am truly interested to know. And I'll be watching throughout this live session for your questions. And I'm just checking to see who we have here now and see who's joined us. And I'm just making sure the monitoring equipment is correct too. So, all right. So, now, I truly believe that this episode has the power to shift not only your relationships, but your entire life. So, let's begin, shall we? Let's talk about how to deal with a mean family. And yes, I did say it, mean, not difficult, not complicated, not old-fashioned, just straight up mean. My friends, we're going to spend the next hour talking honestly about what that looks like, how it affects you, and most importantly, what you can do to protect your peace without losing your mind. And that's an important one right there. So whether you're here live or you are watching the replay, I want you to feel seen, safe, and supported. So if this does hit home today, please drop a comment in the chats or comments. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. I'm very grateful for everybody that joins the channel. It's becoming quite a community. It's growing nicely. And it's a very exciting time because we have a lot of cool things to talk about, very important things, very vital things, because we live in a society today where everything is very fast-paced, and sometimes we often forget to take care of ourselves. So this is a grounder, this is a reminder, take care of yourself, okay? So let's talk about the first part of this episode, recognizing mean behavior in the family. That's our first step. We really need to recognize and see what it is before we can go about how to deal with it. So let's just start with the basics. So, what does a mean family actually look like? Now, I'm not talking about one bad argument with your mom or being a little too blunt, if it's that one time little frisky thing. What I'm talking about is repeated patterns of this, okay? I'm talking about like constant criticism, mocking your interests or dreams, even worse, name calling, making fun of your emotions, guilt tripping, holding mistakes over your head forever. That is an infamous one. Comparing you to others to make you feel small. Again, terrible, terrible things. A family is not supposed to be that way. So a mean family just isn't about shouting or slamming doors. Sometimes it can be quiet. It can be subtle. It's the sarcasm that stings, and it stings deep. It could be judgment wrapped in, I'm just worried about you. That's a clever one. Can anybody relate to that? Does any of this sound familiar? Right now, I'm going to share with you a letter I received from a friend regarding this very subject. And it's another friend of mine. His name is James too. So James didn't realize his family was mean until he left home. And here's his letter. Growing up, the constant teasing was just normal behavior. At dinner, if I made a mistake telling a story, or maybe I mispronounced a word, my dad would laugh and say, "Wow, you're really not the sharpest, are you?" Everyone would laugh, even me, because if you didn't laugh, you'd get hit with, "Hey, just relax. You know it was just a joke. Why do you always have to be so sensitive?" Does anybody relate with this? It's terrible. You know, they made fun of the way I was dressed, my weight. Yeah, you're eating too many Twinkies. You're getting too fat. Terrible, terrible. My dreams. Once I told them I wanted to be a writer, and my aunt said, "Oh, great, another broke artist in the family. Why don't you just do something useful with your life, James?" Again, terrible. Every Thanksgiving, every birthday, every gathering, there'd be at least one moment where I left the room I literally felt like I had to cry in the bathroom. I'd tell myself I was overreacting, that they really didn't mean it. Enabling. But the truth is, they did. So, what they truly meant was to feel superior. They meant to put me in my place. They meant to laugh at my expense because of this. It made them feel in control. You know, and it wasn't until college when I spent time around friends whose families genuinely supported them that I realized not everyone has to brace for impact before a family call. Yeah. Not everyone has to feel sick with dread before going home before the holidays. You know, giving that new partner of yours the forewarning, this is what you're going to expect. You know, the nonchalant way of saying, I'm really embarrassed to have you meet my family. So it's terrible, isn't it? So that was the first time that I allowed myself to say the words, my family isn't just tough, they're mean. And saying that didn't make me ungrateful. It didn't make me disrespectful. What it did was it made me honest. And that honesty became the first step to protect myself. I started setting boundaries. I stopped explaining myself. And slowly I stopped blaming myself for their bad behavior. Again, getting rid of the enabling. So, you know, and this is why it hurts so much. So, and I mean, it truly hurt because this is your family again. This is your family. You know, we all know that people are flawed, right? The reason it hits different when it's family versus the outside world is because these are the people who are supposed to protect you. These are the people that are supposed to teach you, to love you, to accept you for who you are. So when your own family makes you feel small, unworthy, or like you're never good enough, you know, it's going to chip away at your self-esteem. And over time, you stop questioning their behavior. And unfortunately, you start questioning your own self-worth. And worst of all, you start thinking it's normal. You know, I can go on and on about this, where you're in these family situations, and unfortunately, it's a pattern, and it becomes ingested, and it also becomes passed on from generation to generation. You know, you may have heard the cop out, oh, this is just how my family is. This is the way we've always been. Does that mean it's right? No. What'll happen is once you start getting around families, again, that support each other, you'll start to realize how dysfunctional that family or your so-called family is. You know, it's terrible, isn't it? It's like a wake-up call sometimes, you know. I've experienced it myself. I've been around different family dynamics, and I said, wow, they were really supportive. Why did I never get that kind of support? You know, or just other circumstances and things like that. So again, these things are kind of where you need to stop it now and not let these things pass on between you or your children, or because what you're doing is teaching them that this is okay when it's not okay. You know, there needs to be a clear support system in the family. And if not, maybe it's time to maybe cut some ties. That's just my opinion on the matter. So let me feel clear. Okay? It's not normal to feel anxiety before a family call. It's not normal to feel like you're walking on eggshells at a dinner gathering, and it's definitely not normal to feel safe or unsafe, expressing who you really are. So with that, let me share with you another story about a man named Fred. I really like this story. It's a very, very important story. It's very vital to what I'm talking about. Fred, he spent 38 long years trying to make his dad proud. So, Fred's 38 years old. He's got a steady job. He's got a good heart. And he's got a quiet strength about him. He's the kind of guy who always will show up for people, even if they don't do the same for him. But for most of his life, Fred had one goal. I need to make my dad proud of me. His father, now, he was the kind of man who never praised anyone. He was a military guy. Now, I love military people. I'm just saying, in particular, his dad was a military guy. Hard lines, cold eyes, everything had to be earned. And even then, it was never enough. When Fred was 8, he got second place in a science fair. He came home gleaming. His dad looked at the ribbon and said, you know, second place is just the first loser. When Fred made varsity basketball team in high school, his dad didn't say congratulations at all. He just said, it's about time. Fred ended up going into accounting because his dad said writing was a waste of time. Or even after 15 years in the field, multiple promotions, and a solid income, his dad still had the audacity to tell people at his church, yeah, he's all right. Not as sharp as his brother, though. Every one of those little comments chipped away at Fred. He didn't yell. He didn't fight back. Fred just kept shrinking. And here's the thing. Fred didn't even realize how deep it cut until he had children of his own. One day, his 7-year-old daughter showed him a drawing she made. It was messy, scribbly, all over the place. But you know what Fred did? He got down on one knee and said, wow, that's amazing, sweetheart. Can we hang it on the refrigerator? And when she ran off, smiling ear to ear, he stood in that kitchen with tears in his eyes, because in that moment, Fred realized he'd been chasing something his whole life that was never going to come. It hurt so much, not just because of what his dad said, but because of what he needed him to say, and he never did. And that's what makes mean families so damaging. It's not just harsh words. It could be the years of silence, the lack of warmth, the love with conditions. So Fred, he still sees his dad sometimes, but now he does it on his own terms. He doesn't beg his father for approval because Fred has finally learned something. You cannot heal by constantly bleeding for people who refuse to care that you're hurting. One of the hardest truths, they might not be able to change. You can send articles, you can speak your truth, you can even scream and beg and cry, but if they're committed to misunderstanding you, they will. And listen, I'm not saying that people can't change. What I'm saying is usually they don't when they're not self-aware and don't think that they've done anything wrong. And that goes along with another story that I was told by a great motivator, Les Brown. His name was Les Brown. I saw him live, and he was talking about the dog on the nail. And I've actually made a video on that too. When the pain of staying the same is too great, that's when you'll change. That's when people sometimes change, is when the pain becomes too much. It's unfortunate that sometimes we have to get to that point in our lives to change. So part of your healing might involve letting go of the fantasy version of your family, the version you wish you had. That grief, it's real. You might need to mourn the parents you deserved but didn't get. So, just taking a look over here, making sure that if there are any questions. Listen, if you have any questions at all, please feel free to ask me any questions. And if I happen to miss a question, please just, if you have to repeat it, because I promise you, I love questions. I'm interested in hearing what you have to say. So I also have an Instagram channel. It's called Think, Dream, Achieve. This is Think, Dream, Do, but it's called Think, Dream, Achieve. So if you look for it, it's going to be in the description. And feel free to DM me, anytime. I'd like to help. Because, in all honesty, a lot of these things that I talk about every day are from personal experiences. So it's very easy for me to talk about. I mean, it's a little unfortunate, but it's true. So with that being said, now let's talk about setting boundaries without apology. Now, here's the pivot. If the family won't change, you must. Not by becoming cold or cruel, but by setting boundaries. And I don't mean just saying, don't do that. I mean limiting how often you talk to them, refusing to engage in the same old arguments, leaving the room when somebody starts yelling, saying, you know what, I'm simply not available for that topic. And look at their eyes when you say that. Deciding not to visit if it's going to cost you your peace. Straining interactions with them. Again, this all goes down to protecting your peace. And it's very difficult because, again, you are attached to your family. So remember, boundaries, they're not punishments. What they are is clarity. They're going to teach people how to treat you. And yeah, at first, they might react badly. And depending on what level of terribleness they possess, it almost might seem like an exorcism. Like the second you start putting up boundaries, they're going to come at you in a demonic fashion. That can happen. So I know there's a little humor in that. We have to laugh sometimes about things. So, because that mean family of yours, they're used to the old version of you who kept quiet. But just because they don't like your boundary doesn't mean it's wrong. So let me tell you about Gina, how she set up her borders and stopped explaining herself. So Gina, she's 42 years old. She's a mother, a teacher, and someone who spent most of her life trying to keep the peace, especially in her family. We always do have one in the family, the peacekeeper, we call them the glue that keeps the family together. So Growing up, Gina was the good girl, the peacemaker, the one who stayed quiet during arguments, even when insults were aimed at her. Now, her older sister, Lana, was the loud one, opinionated, controlling, and cruel when she wanted to be. Her mom called Lana just fiery. Her dad just ignored it altogether. Typical, like a lot of fathers, just ignore it all. Anytime Gina tried to stand up for herself, she was told, Gina, don't be so dramatic. She didn't mean it. Come on, you should know better. You're just being too sensitive, Gina. So, for years, Gina learned to shrug it off even when it hurt. Until 2 years ago. It was a Christmas dinner. Gina had brought her 2 children, made a pie from scratch, and spent most of the evening helping in the kitchen while her sister made snide remarks about her divorce. Again. Lana leaned over and loudly said, well, at least I kept my marriage together, but, you know, it's like you to always be quitting things, right? Everyone froze. Then, as always, someone tried to smooth it over. Lana, stop. You're being mean again. And then, Gina, just let it go. It's not worth it. But this time, Gina would not let it go. She refused. She stood up calmly. No shouting, no crying. And this is what she said. And I know some of you out there was like, oh, she's raising her fist at, no. You know, sometimes, you know, they can drive you to the point where you get so angry, right? You know, so. And Gina said, you don't get to talk to me like that anymore. I'm done pretending it's okay just because we share a last name. The room went silent. And then Gina did something she had never done before in her life. She took her kids, got in the car, and went home. No scene, no fight, no apology. Later that night, of course, her phone blew up with messages. Why did you leave like that? Can't you just ignore her? For crying out loud, it's Christmas. But Gina didn't respond. Because for the first time ever, she wasn't explaining her boundaries. She wasn't asking for permission to protect her peace anymore. She was just doing it. Since then, Gina still does see her family, but with limits. If her sister's going to be there, she might not come. If the conversation gets ugly, she'll leave without fanfare. And yes, some people think Gina's cold now. Come on. But here's what Gina knows for sure. Every time she says no to disrespect, she's saying to herself, in that kind of peace, you don't owe anyone an apology for that. You know, some of you are thinking, okay, but what if I still live with them? Or I can't afford to cut them out of my life yet? Now, I know there are many people out there that have, you know, one scenario is you've had to move in with your parents again because you're facing some hardships. But don't worry, I got you on this. Because I know many people that have had this happen, and they're like, what am I going to do? You know? So let's talk about coping and healing. Wow. You're having to stay in the situation. And again, I hear you. Not everyone can go no contact, but let's talk about survival mode here. Emotional detachment. You don't have to emotionally invest in every nasty comment. Okay? Let me repeat that. Emotional detachment. You don't have to emotionally invest in every nasty comment. So when I say detach, I don't mean shutting down emotionally or pretending you don't care when you actually do, because you do. I mean learning how to protect your peace by choosing not to absorb every nasty comment like it's a gospel truth. Here's the one thing most of us never got taught. Just because somebody says something about you doesn't mean you have to believe it, respond to it, or carry it, especially when it's coming from family, mean family. So I want you to think about this. How many times has a parent, a sibling, or aunt or uncle said something sharp, maybe just one sentence, and it lived in your head for weeks. They move on like it's nothing, but you keep replaying it in the shower. We've all been there. You're driving to work thinking, why would they say that? You're sitting in silence wondering, maybe they're right. That's what emotional investment looks like. You put your energy, your emotions, your attentions into a comment that wasn't even about truth. It was about power. Now flip that. Imagine they say something like, ooh, look who finally showed up. Must have had nothing better to do. Instead of shrinking, instead of snapping back, you smile and think, wow, that's on them. You're not defending yourself. No argument, no long explanations. But guess what? You don't owe anyone a reaction. And for those of you who are thinking, but if I don't stand up for myself, won't they win? Here's the truth. You don't fight fire with fire. You fight with non-reaction, with boundaries, with peace. I just did an episode on this about dealing with narcissists. That's what they thrive on. They thrive on drama. And once you cut that out and you don't give them any ammunition, wow, look at them. They begin to tailspin. So, when somebody needs you to get angry or hurt to feel powerful and you give them nothing, that's how you will win. Let me give you a phrase to keep in your pocket. 5 words. That doesn't work for me. Or, I noted what you just said. Thank you. That's it. And if they try to bait you, shame you, insult you, or even belittle you, just calmly say it or think it to yourself. That doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for me. So it doesn't have to become a conversation. It doesn't need to escalate. You're simply reclaiming your energy and protecting your peace, because not every comment deserves your spirit. Not every insult deserves your identity. I almost said not every insult deserves your swing. And not every family member gets limited access to your emotions just because you share the same DNA. It's the truth. So here's your reminder. You're not being cold. You're not weak. You're not being disrespectful for choosing emotional distance over emotional damage. What you're learning is how to stay soft without staying wounded. Now, it's going to take a little practice. But with that, you will achieve that emotional detachment. And in a mean family, that is your best suit of armor against them. Okay? Now, here's another great one. Gray rocking. If you don't know what that is, I'm going to explain it. Or Google it. Gray rocking. That's a great one. Keep your answers dry and boring. Don't give them reactions to feed on. Again, I talked about that in my other podcast about how to punish a narcissist. Okay? So if you've never heard of it, gray rocking is a strategy, and it comes straight out of dealing with manipulative or emotionally toxic people. So the idea is pretty simple. You become as uninteresting and non-reactive as possible. You don't argue, you don't defend, you don't feed their drama. You just respond in a way as bland as a gray rock on the ground. Why? Again, because mean people, especially the ones in your family who love to push your buttons, thrive off your reaction. And we're not going to let them do it anymore. They might say something cruel, and then they just love to watch your face fall, or they wait for you to blow up so they can say, see, you're the problem. That's wicked. That's just wicked. And again, I've experienced that before myself. It's terrible.
It's terrible. And you just got to keep yourself calm. So here's how it works in real life. Say your mom says, "You always look so tired. You should try taking care of yourself for once." Old response, maybe you defend yourself, maybe you snap, maybe you try to explain all the stress you've been under. Now, here's the gray rock response. Noted. Okay. Hey, that's it. Dry, flat, no emotional fuel for the fire. Now listen, I get it. This might feel unnatural at first, again, because especially if you're used to defending yourself or explaining every little thing, it's going to be tough at first. It's going to take some practice, but I promise you, it's going to feel good. It's going to feel good because all of a sudden you're going to feel like you have some armor and you're going to be deflecting all this nonsense. So you're not obligated to perform emotional gymnastics for people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Gray rocking isn't about being rude. It's about being unavailable, again, for the nonsense. Here's another example. Say your brother or your uncle says, "Wow, still working that same dead-end job, huh? Must be nice not having any ambition." Instead of clapping back, say, "Huh, interesting. Anyway, how's your car running?" You change the subject, you stay neutral, you don't flinch. Why? Because when you stop reacting, they lose their grip. Many people only poke when they know that you're sensitive. It is a human flaw. But again, some people need it. So, they're looking for cracks. And the second you stop letting them in, even with your facial expressions or tone, the game stops becoming fun for them. So, does this mean you don't feel anything? Of course not. You can be fuming inside. You might be hurt, but again, here's the shift. You stop giving them satisfaction of seeing that pain. You deal with those emotions in a safe place with a friend, maybe a journal, therapist, not in front of someone who's going to give and use those feelings against you. Because once you go gray rock, here's what happens. You stop pouring your energy into losing battles. You start reclaiming your emotional power. And eventually, they'll either back off or reveal exactly how toxic they are when you stop playing the role that they wrote for you. Again, we talk about exorcisms, If they're, that's like the extreme when they start getting demonic like that, But now, again, don't use a lot of this psychology and philosophy to start provoking. You're just simply trying to provoke yourself. So, again, gray rocking is not about shutting down. It's about choosing your peace over proving your point. And when it comes to a mean family, sometimes your silence is going to be that boundary. So, let's move on to support systems. Now, this is great. This is great. And I'm a living testament to this myself. Okay. Support systems build a chosen family. It could be friends, teachers, online communities. Here's the reality a lot of people don't say out loud. Sometimes your real family, it doesn't have to be your own blood. It's in fact the people who show up for you consistently, kindly, without cruelty. That's right. Those are your real family members, even though they might not share your DNA. So right now, we're going to call it what is your chosen family. Okay? And if you come from mean, critical, emotional people unavailable at home, let me tell you something. You need a chosen family terribly, because you cannot and should not try to heal in isolation. So, again, what's a chosen family? A chosen family is made up of people you intentionally keep in your life because they make you feel seen, safe, and supported. Loved as you are, not who they want you to be.
It could be a best friend who always checks on you, a coworker who feels more like a sister. Could be a teacher or a mentor who listens without any judgment. And even an online community of people who get it and don't minimize your pain. You know, online communities are amazing. I see them on Instagram, real tight communities. It's a wonderful place. I've seen people say, everybody outside of they just think I'm so weird. It's good to be weird. Find yourself some cool, weird people to be around, and then maybe you won't feel weird anymore. I hate that word too, weird. It's like, what do you consider weird? Because I'm not normal like you. What is normal? So again, these people might not share your DNA, but they can see you clearly, and that matters, I promise you, more than blood ever will. Here's why it's essential, especially if you're still around mean family. Let me tell you something I wish more people knew. You can't keep going back to the same people who hurt you for comfort. You can't keep begging someone who won't hug you emotionally to finally understand your pain. That's pretty deep, but this is so true. That's why you build a circle, a lifeline, people who remind you of your worth when your family tries to tear it all down. It can just be one person. That's enough. Now, here's how to start building that circle. If you're wondering, how do I find these people? Here's where you begin. Look for people who listen more than they lecture. Okay? Look for people who make space for your feelings without trying to fix or judge you. Look for people who feel easy to be around, not exhausting. These are very, very vital things. Again, people who listen, no lecturing. People who make your feelings heard without trying to fix or judge you, okay? And sometimes those people aren't in your immediate life yet, and that's okay. You can find support online. Again, Facebook, Instagram, Reddit threads, local support meetings, podcasts, healing circles, even apps like Geneva or Discord, or here at Think, Dream, Do. Again, I'm always here for any messages. I'm here for you. Any thoughts, comments, I'm here for you. So again, healing is not a solo mission. And I'll be honest, some of the kindest, most encouraging people in my life today, I met them after distancing myself from family. And for a while, I felt guilty about that. Like, am I replacing my family? But here's what I realized. I wasn't replacing anyone. I was finally receiving what I should have been receiving all along. Just because you come from dysfunction does not mean that you have to live in it. You get to choose love. You get to choose peace. And you get to build a family, even if you had to build it from scratch. Isn't that fun? So, there are many more ways on how to heal: affirmations, deep breathing, therapy. And listen, I know it. I know all this from experience. So just think about it, okay? If this resonated with you today, please share it with someone who needs it, okay? Like, subscribe, give me a comment. Again, I love comments. Please send me a comment. So, and if I haven't told you this today, I believe in you. So even if you weren't raised by these people, okay, these extended groups out there, okay, if they're showing you love, peace, self-reflection, these are going to be your chosen family. Okay, you don't have to, and I'm not saying just to cut your other family out either completely. What I'm saying is that you deserve peace and you deserve love, because I've always said it, life is for the living. Life is very short. So let's just make the most of it. And if we have people trying to drag us down, trying to adulterate our lives, we just need to kick them to the curb. I mean, plain, honest truth. Just kick them to the curb. If they can't, if they can't see your self-worth, if they're not helping you in any way, really, just do it. So, you might get called names, unfortunately, or whatever, but just don't feed into it. So this was a really interesting episode. I hope you found it interesting. So I just wanted to say again how grateful I am to everyone who decided to tune in today. Very, very grateful. Thank you so much. And thank you to all the new subscribers out there. I'm just so grateful that something that I've said may have resonated with you. And again, if I can help you in any way, that's my mission. Really, that's my mission, because I know that there are a lot of people out there that need it. We silently go through our lives like we're just driving in a car and it's just going along with everything that's going on. But we need to be centered. We need to find that center. Okay? So, again, thank you so much for everybody joining me today. And I look forward to, like I said, if you have a comment, please leave me a comment. And I look forward to seeing you all again soon. And if you can think it, you can dream it. And if you can dream it, then you can do it. We'll see you again. Bye-bye, everyone. Look forward to seeing you again. Bye-bye.